sevens players use both anaerobic and aerobic energy systems and are regularly interchanging between the two. The large amount of running uses the aerobic system, and once the body begins to start fatiguing, the body then changes to the anaerobic system. The lactic acid energy system uses the ATP that is immediately available within the muscle cell. It has a very fast rate of ATP production, but very limited store of fuel. As there are many repetitive sprints and harsh tiring movements throughout a rugby game, the lactic acid and ATP systems are then used. As the amount of fatigue and experience in a rugby game is so extreme, the anaerobic system needs to be able to jump in and assist whenever needed. The aerobic system gets its source of fuel from carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. The aerobic energy system is used throughout a rugby sevens game as it lasts for a long period of time and includes lots of running and oxygen intake. It is so important to train both aerobic and anaerobic energy systems when training for a rugby, as they are both used and interchangeably throughout the entirety of the game. Strength training is so important in ensuring players' bodies are as strong as needed, along with minimizing injury levels. Strength training affects performance by causing muscular hypertrophy. Strength training causes a large amount of stress on the muscles being used, and the body responds to intensities by increasing the size of the muscle to increase muscular strength, so that the next time the body encounters that intensity, it can be done without causing as much damage. Strength training can be done using isometric or isotonic contractions. Rugby sevens uses isotonic contractions as it is more frequent and muscular strength is highly needed in rugby. Weight training is so important as it not only works on increasing the specific major muscle, but also the smaller muscles used to stabilize the movement. Weight training is a big part in rugby training as players need a large amount in strength and power, specifically in the legs needed for running and supporting the tackle, the upper body for ball passes, catching and tackling, as well as a relatively strong neck for scrums, etc. An overall high level of muscular strength will improve a rugby player's performance by decreasing the risk of injury as well as creating a greater amount of power and strength. Although weight training is the main type of training for rugby players, hydraulic training is also greatly relied on. Hydraulic training uses water, air, or compression to provide resistance throughout the movement. Hydraulic strength training is great for rugby as it requires fast movements through resistance. This can be seen when a player is being tackled and is still driving through to continue making ground. Warming up and cooling down is incredibly important before and after weight training as it brings the heart rate back to its resting rate, along with warming or cooling the particular muscles to be used correctly, as well as majorly decreasing the risk of injury. Aerobic training specifically targets the aerobic and cardiovascular systems, improving the delivery of oxygen to enhance its use. Elite rugby players generally partake in aerobic training 5 times a week with a very high intensity to maximize their heart rate. Aerobic training is important in rugby as it specifically develops the cardiovascular system, and the delivery of oxygen is vital in the recovery of each energy system. In my training, I usually partake in fartlek training, which is when an athlete participates in a singular activity with random varying intensities. This includes going for an 8-minute jog followed by a 1-minute sprint. Elite athletes also partake in circuit training, where various activities are done for a set time before moving on to the next activity, with either varying or stable intensities. As the average distance covered for an elite rugby sevens player ranges from 5 kilometers to 7.75 kilometers, with maximum speeds varying from 23.7 kilometers per hour to 31.5 kilometers per hour per game. It is clear that aerobic training is highly dependent on it throughout a rugby sevens game. Psychology plays a tremendous role on performance and is one of the biggest determinants of winning or losing at an elite level. An athlete needs to be able to cope well with pressure so they can fully concentrate on the competition. Athletes develop strategies to enhance motivation, manage anxiety, as well as ensuring their body is at the optimal level of arousal. Motivation is the driving force behind an athlete. Over the course of a career, an athlete who is motivated by an intrinsic positive motivation is more likely to succeed and last longer in their sport than someone who is motivated by an extrinsic negative motivation. Rugby Sevens players have many differing forms of motivation, including financial, the strive to win, internal motivation, the fear of upsetting their coach or fans, qualifying for a particular team, or the fear of being benched. Anxiety tends to inhibit performance and comes purely from the mind of the player. Anxiety can come in two forms, trait or state anxiety. Trait anxiety comes from within a player and is their personal level of anxiety. For example, a rugby player is about to partake in the grand final and is anxious about the unknown outcome. That is trait anxiety. State anxiety is as a result of a particular situation. For example, if a player rolls their ankle, they could be nervous for the rest of the game. Arousal can either inhibit or benefit performance and results from bodily responses to the stimulus. Rugby Sevens requires a very high level of arousal and is often referred to as being pumped up or in the zone. Some ways rugby players get aroused before a game includes listening to music, participating in pep talks with their coach and team, and jumping around with the rest of their teammates. Rugby players also need to have a good level of concentration and attention skills, especially elite athletes, as they need to be able to focus on the game while surrounded by fans, media, and more. Positive self-talk and mental performance also help an elite rugby player with their concentration and overall performance, as well as goal setting and relaxation techniques. Some examples of mental rehearsal include visualizing the kick or try before actually doing it. This then improves confidence and concentration. Mental rehearsal also draws upon muscle memory. Some examples of relaxation techniques include listening to music before a game or participating in breathing exercises. Nutrition is so important for rugby players. A good diet and nutrition levels will provide players with the energy and supplements they need to perform at their best. Before a game, it is important to have carbohydrates for fuel as well as fluids for hydration. A small amount of protein can also be useful as it prevents hunger throughout a game. Some examples of pre-game food include a wrap or sandwich with chicken and salad, a bowl of muesli with yogurt and berries, or poached eggs with baked beans on toast. This larger meal is generally had 3 to 4 hours before a game, with a snack had at 1 to 2 hours prior to the game, including a banana, yogurt, or toast. During a game, it is important to keep the hydration levels up through drinking lots of water. Sports drinks, including Powerade, are also useful to deliver higher levels of energy, electrolytes, and carbohydrates. Oranges are also often consumed during halftime periods. After a game, the main goal of nutrition is to refuel glycogen, repair muscles, and rehydrate. Recovery meals and snacks should therefore contain a combination of carbohydrates, protein, fluids, and electrolytes to replace sweat loss. Some examples of post-game nutrition include a ham and salad sandwich, a dairy-based smoothie, or a baked potato with minced beef. Recovery is so vital as it ensures training and performance can continue at high intensities and last for longer durations of time to further stimulate the body and cause adaptations. Recovery strategies can be grouped into 4 different types: physiological strategies, neural strategies, tissue damage strategies, and psychological strategies. Physiological strategies include cooling down after training or a game to remove waste products and return the body back to its pre-exercise state. Hydration is also another incredibly important physiological recovery strategy, as it replaces any fluids lost during training or a game. Neural strategies focus on the nervous system and relieving tension. Neural recovery is so important for rugby players as a large amount of muscle tension is caused during a rugby game or training. Hydrotherapy is a form of recovery that involves water immersion. Hydrotherapy is often used for rugby players as it causes vasodilation and vasoconstriction, which helps remove waste products and deliver nutrients required for recovery. Massages are also commonly used by rugby players to relieve muscle tension. Tissue damage strategies aim to speed up recovery by restoring damaged tissue, particularly muscle tissue. Cryotherapy is often used with rugby and involves ice baths, cold water immersions, and ice packs. This removes heat from the damaged tissue, decreases inflammation, and decreases pain. Ice baths aim to reduce fluid buildup in the body caused by tissue damage during exercise. Psychological strategies focus on the mental process and are usually used to either calm or stimulate the brain's activity. It also is used to decrease the heart and respiratory rates. Sleep, debriefing, and rest days are all different types of psychological strategies used in recovery.